While we love seeing dominant and sheer unstoppable winners, the best part of any sport is rooting for an underdog. For today's video, we're looking at the biggest underdogs in MMA history. We're talking absolute shockers, where legends were born and the scrappy underdogs win their way over MMA greats. Before we get into the meat of the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more videos on the coolest sports content. Frankie Edgar vs BJ Penn. Starting off this video strong, we have to talk about this historic upset that was once considered one of the biggest in the MMA scene in the 2010s. On July 7, 2014 at UFC 112, we bore witness to this featherweight matchup where we saw Frankie Edgar going up against BJ Penn, one of the fiercest and toughest fighters in all of the lighter weight divisions and a Hall of Fame fighter. Safe to say people really thought Penn was going to get another win, especially considering that before the fight, Penn had not lost a fight since 2002, aka over a decade of undefeated dominance. Frankie Edgar went the distance with Penn, and his smarts as well as cardio and skill allowed him to have an insane defense against Penn. Penn threw everything at Frankie Edgar, but Frankie clearly steadied Penn and neutralized any offense he had planned. After a grueling 5 rounds and a judge's decision later, Frankie Edgar is crowned the winner, capping this UFC underdog story's first chapter off and igniting the Penn vs. Edgar rivalry for all MMA fans to witness. Griffin vs. Mauricio Shogun Rua.
I'm 100% this fight. I don't have problem with my knee more, and I'm 100% for this fight.
In the world of MMA, before the UFC's dominance, the two main promotions were UFC and the Japanese promotion Pride. Both promotions had the top premier fighters in the world, and they had slightly different fight rules for each promotion. This battle marked an important event in MMA, as this was one of the first fights in UFC after the UFC and Pride merger from Zuffa. In this fight, we saw a bout between some of the greatest light heavyweight fighters of the world. Shogun Rua was an absolute beast in Pride, and he was coming into the UFC as what people considered the greatest light heavyweight in the world. Griffin was no scrub, however. Griffin was known as the original Ultimate Fighter for a reason, setting his name as the winner of the Ultimate Fighter Season 1. This fight may be an upset, but the whole thing was a close war. Griffin suffered serious hits and even had a giant cut on his forehead from Shogun's elbows. However, in the end, Griffin had the experience, the stamina, and the heart. After a tough first and a just as tough start to the second round, Shogun was gassed while Griffin knew this and tired him out with unpredictable strikes and scrambling around the octagon. Then in the third, Griffin got the rear naked choke on Shogun Rua, and he was forced to tap, sealing the upset win by Griffin. Griffin believed he was no joke, and that he was part of the exclusive list of MMA elites in the world. Holm vs. Ronda Rousey.
Well, all I really noticed about her is during the stare downs and during the weigh-in, she likes to have her hand on the outside. So I just wanted to place my hand on the outside. That was it.
In what's commonly considered one of the biggest upsets in all of female MMA, Holm, an odd and grizzled MMA fighter whose expertise was boxing, was facing the undefeated and one of the most dominant fighters in female MMA history, Ronda Rousey. Almost everyone involved was expecting the fight to be a wash, as Ronda Rousey barely left the first round without a knockout or stoppage on her opponents. It was clear from the start that even priority-wise, the two fighters had different agendas. While Holm was training hard to truly compete with Rousey, Rousey's pre-fight prep was drumming up hype for the fight, because Holm was incredibly unknown before the fight. Even matchup-wise, the fight seemed destined for a Holm beatdown, as Ronda Rousey's jiu-jitsu and wrestling skill was very much the biggest counter to Holm's boxing skill set. Nevertheless, Rousey continued to go on press tours to drum up the hype, while Holm could care less and continued training hard. In fact, there was probably extra motivation for Rousey, as she was busy trying to get people to watch their fight, while Holm just wanted to work on her game. Then, on November 14, 2015 at UFC 193, Rousey and Holm finally faced off. Immediately, it was obvious that Holm was in tip-top shape as nothing Rousey could throw at her was working out. Rousey was throwing shot after shot, and Holmes had the defense and timing to dodge and block almost everything the aggressive fighter was dishing out. Rousey was clearly shaken, which was understandable for a fighter we're used to stopping fighting in the first few minutes and were now struggling to even survive. As soon as people saw Holm reach the second round, people knew anything was possible with a fight. Then in the second round, Holm throws a beautiful head kick, and like that, the upset was complete. Holm cemented her place in MMA for being the first fighter to stop the freight train streak and dominance of Rousey. Safe to say this upset is one of the best underdog moments for sure. Serra versus George St. Pierre.
You reminisce a lot?
I do, sometimes.
When's the last time you watched the GSP fight?
This morning. No, look.
I have to admit, I was devastated when he lost.
Really? Oh, because you're from Montreal.
Yes.
You were devastated.
I was devastated.
In what's commonly considered the Buster Douglas versus Mike Tyson fight of the UFC, Serra was 9-4 while GSP was 13-1, and his one loss came when he was still very young and inexperienced in the world of MMA, and he was going up against the welterweight champ and MMA legend Matt Hughes, who was 35-3 while GSP was just 7-0 prior. That was no longer an issue for George Rush St. Pierre, however, as his first title defense is coming off a dominant win over Matt Hughes in a rematch, taking him down into the canvas and beating him down. GSP had also gone and won fights against some of the greatest fighters in the division like Frank Trigg and BJ Penn. Serra also did inspire optimism in this title fight, as his fight to earn the title shot was a tired, slow, and boring bout. That was the end of that year's Ultimate Fighter. Despite everyone in the world calling Serra the underdog, heck, even after stare downs where you saw 5'6" Serra have to face off against 5'11" George St. Pierre, the MMA's golden boy in the face of the next generation, Serra stayed adamant that this title and win was his dream. Serra may have had the reach and height disadvantage, but he showed that he had the dog in him. He was far from passive. Each time GSP went for a takedown or punch, he came in with his own barrage. Nothing summarized Serra's heart like this signature moment, as Matt took a full-on head kick from St. Pierre like it was nothing. The reach disadvantage meant nothing, as Serra kept diving in for takedowns and charging in for inside shots on the taller champion. Finally, just 3 minutes and 45 seconds into the first round, Serra's ground and pound game is shown off in full display. GSP was just at his mercy as he got knocked down with Serra's full strength on display. Every punch Matt threw was tough, and GSP was getting hammered with absolutely no defense. Finally, the ref had to call it off or risk getting GSP even more badly hurt. Serra had the heart of a champion, and that got him the well-deserved championship belt. While every championship is special, the story and the execution just make this a special moment in all of MMA history. And that's all for today's video. Who's your favorite MMA underdog of all time? Write your answers down in the comments, and while you're at it, leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell for notifications on the newest videos and the best sports content.